Welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, June 14th. I'll start with calling to order and roll call on the left.
June Gagney. John Moore.
Carla Desjardins.
Raj Shivik.
Brian Bray.
Mary Ann Chinati.
Katie O'Neill. All right. So I will appoint Kevin Poppy for Frank Mills. So we start with public hearing. Item A, Z 2022-2275, continuation of Planning and Zoning Commission applying for the amendment to zoning regulations for accessory dwelling units. Ryan, do you want to give the highlights?
Sure. So the last meeting, which was a special meeting on May 31st, the Commission decided to scale back the regulations for accessory apartments, now referred to as, or will be referred to as accessory dwelling units. So the Commission has decided to no longer allow for detached ADUs. ADUs have to be attached to the house. Still allowed to go up to 1,200 square feet and up to 2 bedrooms. All ADUs will require a special permit as they currently do now. Just a slightly larger adaptation of what we currently allow. And you want to go into more depth and detail, or?
Just the highlight overview is fine.
Okay.
All right. So this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience with a comment or question on this application, please step up to the microphone with your name and your comment.
Art Gagney, Central Village. I just have two things then. I would like to see the commission discuss lot size restrictions, especially for lots that are under half an acre. And I also think that 1,200 square feet is too large for an ADU. I think 900 is fine. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience with a comment or question on this application? Any comments or questions from board members? Anything additional from staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the public hearing.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion to close by John, a second from June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to item B, Z 2022-2283, continuation of United Ag and Turf Northeast, requesting permission to construct a 7,780 square foot addition, pavement modifications, and drainage improvements for property located at 20 Excalibur Boulevard, Assessor's Map 17, Block 11, Lot I-32, HC, which is Highway Commercial?
Yes.
Highway Commercial Zoning District.
Good evening. My name is Tim Kuhn. I'm a professional engineer with J.R. Russo and Associates, here tonight representing United Ag and Turf Northeast with Dave Hammond, who's in the audience as well. The existing site is 6.68 acres located at 20 Excalibur Boulevard, which is the former motorsports station, which you're likely familiar with. It is zone commercial. It's abutted by Route 395 to the north and northwest. Open space a long way through the brook to the east, and by I believe there's a Shell station and Wendy's to the south. There's an existing building, which is the darker brown color here on the exhibit, which is approximately 18,600 square feet, and an existing parking lot that was all developed back in 2005. The building is served by public water, sewer, and natural gas, as well as an on-site stormwater management system that consists of on-site catch basins to collect the runoff and divert some of it to a surface basin located down in the southwest corner of the site. And a lot of it goes directly into subsurface infiltration systems scattered throughout the site. There are no wetlands on the site, however, Lathrop Brook is located to our east, and this purple line designates the 100-foot upland review area, and we have received a wetland approval back in April. So what is being proposed is a 7,780 square foot addition. It's being proposed in 2 phases. It is located on the southeast or southwest side of the site or the building. The first phase is 3,380 square feet. The second phase will be 4,400 square feet. The majority of this addition is located in an area that is already paved. There's a small island located up in this area that will be removed. We will be doing some reconfiguring of the edge of the pavement along the driveway around the building, but the net result is only an increase in impervious area of about 3,244 square feet. The parking lot to the south of the building is to remain. Based on the parking calculation, 53 spaces are required, and what we are proposing is 53 spaces. Again, the parking will be in these 2 parking lots. This area up to adjacent to the highway will be converted to a display area, and we'll have the remaining required parking down in the southern lot. In that existing lot, we'll strike those for the remaining parking spaces. The majority of the southern lot, you'll see this is hatched, and that is proposed to be used for display, because this is United Ag and Turf sells agricultural products, as you know, machinery. They have large equipment that they sell. They need a lot of outside area for display. So this hatch area are areas where we are proposing outdoor display. Again, the southern parking lot, the side, the edge adjacent to the highway, around the building, and also around the western side of the addition. Those will be areas proposed for display. The southeast lot, which is the one down in this corner, again, this is an existing paved parking lot, will be our area for loading, unloading, and storage of crated and unassembled products, as well as equipment drop-off that's coming in for repair. We will be adding a curb cut through the island and widening this curb cut to facilitate maneuvering of tractor trailers and for the dropping off and unloading of equipment, as well as a concrete ramp for unloading down in this corner. Drainage improvements. Essentially, we'll be utilizing the existing drainage system on site. However, with the addition of the building, we have had to add an additional catch basin, as well as manhole and some piping. We will be intercepting the runoff, and we will be installing a new stormwater management basin, which has been designed in accordance with the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual to provide treatment, groundwater recharge, and retention so that there's no increase in peak flow as a result of the small amount of additional impervious area that we have. A drainage report was submitted with our application and reviewed and approved by the town's consulting engineer. In addition, there are several existing catch basins located in the existing parking lots throughout the site, and all those existing catch basins will be retrofitted with a catch basin insert to provide treatment and removal of total suspended solids from the stormwater stream, which is something that did not happen before. So we'll be adding those to provide treatment where no treatment was provided previously. Our dumpster, we are locating at the very northwestern end of the site. This will be an area on pavement which will also be fenced with a privacy slats for screening. We will also be providing a fence along the southern property boundaries to provide screening as well from the south. And a new gate located across the driveway for security reasons. Site lighting, we're not proposing any additional pole-mounted lights in the parking lot. We're simply going to add some light fixtures, some wall packs onto the existing building as well as the building additions. That will provide sufficient light for us, and we did provide the cut sheets for those fixtures as well as a photometric plan that demonstrates there will be no spillover across property lines. Much of the existing landscaping at the site, when United Ag and Turf first purchased it, was overgrown and in need of pruning, if you will. So what they've done is they've removed most of it, but we are providing a landscape plan which shows the replacement of what was removed in these landscape islands, where we're providing trees and shrubs to replace what was taken out throughout the parking lot and along the driveways. As part of our proposal, we are showing a pylon sign which is located adjacent to Route 395. There is a detail at the back of the packet that I gave you which shows the sign. It is a 30-foot high sign mounted on 2 poles, and it has an area of approximately 100 square feet per side. And I believe at one point in time, I may have mentioned to Ryan that this was being removed from the application, but I want to make it clear that this is still part of our application. We do want to get this sign location approved, so just wanted to make sure that that was clear. In your package, there are also floor plans and elevations for the addition. I have just the elevations here. The addition will be used for maintenance and repair of equipment. The front facade is, the lower portion has a brick finish, and will have a metal roof. We did receive several comments from the town engineer as well as the assistant town planner over the course of the process of going through the approval process. We have addressed, we believe, all of those items with one particular thing that the engineer recommended we take up with the commission, and that is the fact that when this parking lot was originally constructed, for whatever reason, I do not know, the width of this parking lot, currently your aisle width requires 24 feet plus a 20-foot deep space. And for whatever reason, that's not how that parking lot was constructed. It was constructed so that it will provide the 20-foot stalls on both sides, but only around 22.5 feet of aisle space. And there was some question, well, do we want to take and repave everything in order to make those comply? We do not. Obviously, there's an expense to that. It would cut into our landscape islands, and really we believe that there's adequate aisle space. Most towns actually only require a 9x18 parking stall with a 24-foot aisle. Your town requires 20, but we feel that there is an adequate aisle at 22.5 for this parking lot, and we would hope that you would consider this an existing non-conforming situation so that we can leave it as is. As I mentioned, we received wetland approval. We believe our application is in harmony with all of the required zoning regulations, meets all of the special permit approval criteria as outlined in section 12.11 of your zoning regulations, and we would ask that you approve our application this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience with a comment or question on this application, just step up to the microphone, state your name and your comment or question. Any comments or questions? Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Paul Sweet, 260 New Road. I support the application as presented to you all.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from staff or town engineer? Any points of clarification or items that you wanted to review?
I have one question. The phase 1 and phase 2 additions, it looks like those are maintenance bays.
Correct.
Can we add that to the Mylars, just to clarify what they are?
Certain, yeah, just label them as maintenance phase.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions from board members?
I just have a question about the truck traffic, about the deliveries. Is there a certain time that they bring in materials? A certain time of day or day of the week?
We're open from 7, usually we're open from 3 until 5, but delivery drivers will come in before and after hours, but not by more than half an hour at the most. So we'll see a lot of deliveries probably 7:30 until 5:15.
Okay, got it.
They're pretty much staggered because it's all the local common carriers, so you're at the mercy of when they come. So
Okay.
unfortunately, it's usually
That's all
during
right. I
business
just- I
hours
was-
for sure.
Can we just get your name for the record?
Dave Hamer from United Ag and Turf.
Who is the applicant?
Ryan, could you clarify about the sign? I know the highway commercial has different sign regulations, so does that have to be a separate permit, or can that be included in this one?
No, that can be included along with this. It requires a special permit, but so does the buildings.
Okay, so it can be included with this application. Okay. Do we need to make any kind of special note on the motion to address it?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
If I may,
Mhm.
when you make if you vote motion to approve the application, all you would need to do is, in accordance with the plans presented at the June 14th meeting.
Thank you. This is public hearing, so anyone else with a comment or question for the applicant, now is your opportunity.
Sean Peterson, question for the applicant. You recently went to ZBA to remove the big sign and put signage on the building, additional signage. What happened?
So basically, that meeting was last Tuesday, so that is our intent, only to have the sign on the building. We didn't know if that was going to be approved, so it was still on this plan. So at the end of the day, with the approval from last week's Tuesday meeting of the 200-odd square feet of signs that we planned, I don't know if it needs to get removed from the plan or left currently. We have no intention at the current time to put that in. So with the exception of the extra signage on the building that was allowed, we're in good shape for signage. I don't know how to address
So
that.
I guess the question is can we get this approved as part of this application in the event that they want to put the final sign up in the future? I guess that would be, that was a question that came up previously.
Yes.
Or does, go ahead.
It was my understanding that the pylon sign will be removed from the application, and that was one of the premises, or one of the bases for applying for the variance last
Okay.
week. However, the ZBA did not exclude the pylon signs being erected in addition to the building signage. So it's up to you if you want to proceed.
Well, then I would leave it up to the commission. It certainly doesn't hurt us if you leave it as part of the approval of the application. That gives them the flexibility to put it up in the future if they feel they can.
Okay, so just to clarify for the audience, essentially what has happened is there's one sign that is included with the zoning application, but it appears last week the applicant went to the Zoning Board of Appeals in order to have a building-mounted sign approved, which exceeded the regular regulations, which is why a variance was required. So in essence, they have a sign approved already that would be mounted on the building, and then there would be a separate standalone sign that would be included with this application.
Correct.
Okay. Just for
But they would not
clarification.
have two signs.
So there would be one on the building and one standing
So there would be
apart. Correct,
We'll build a mounted signage and one freestanding sign.
correct.
Just, I didn't see the building-mounted sign on these plans. I would, if the commission votes to approve, make that a condition.
And could you indicate indicate on the plan exactly where that mounted sign is and what are the dimensions of it?
Yes. Well, dimensions I'd have to defer to Dave, but I believe it is on this little
Turret, if you will, castle turret. So on the castle turret, we have a 7x7 John Deere sign going on there, and then two separate 3x6 signs, one for steel chainsaws and one for Honda. And then above the grand entrance, if you would, there's a 4-foot tall by 11-foot long, might be actually 11-foot 9, United lit up sign there. And then in order to, butt 395, we're doing a John Deere sign and a United sign on that side.
So all those signs but one face the highway.
I guess there's 4 on this side of the building facing south, and then 2 facing to the west. And our intent at this point is not to do the pylon sign. It's actually cost prohibitive for us. It's a $90,000 sign that we really don't want to spend right now, so that's the intent, not to have that as long as we had the approval from last week's meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Chuck, do you have any further comments? I know you had a question about the 4 bays and maintenance.
That was, so in discussion with the design...
Just state your name, Chuck, for the record.
Chuck Eaton, town engineer. In discussions with the design engineer, we just wanted to make it clear that, they would need some specialized equipment to clean those 4 bays out. So, just wanted to make everyone aware of that. The only other kind of comment he had was that the commission should discuss the aisle width, with the thought being that this isn't an equipment dealer and service area. These guys have big trucks, trailers, that sort of thing, so it's not like a supermarket parking lot type of thing. But that's to you guys to debate that.
So Ryan, question, because I can't recall when this was originally applied for, was the original lot approved with the 24 and it just wasn't built to plan? Or do you know what happened there?
I'd have to check the original plans. I don't know if it was constructed improperly for that particular portion of the aisles or if it was approved that way.
Now, is there discretion in the regulations on that, or is it a specific?
Well, it's an existing condition. They're not constructing it. I wouldn't advise to rip out the islands and change it at this point. It's short by a foot or 2 between 2 sets of parking rows and in the aisle.
Okay. So if an approval of existing, there could be something that if any additional parking was made, it would have to conform to existing regulations.
Well, and it's all shown in here, the additional parking, which all conforms.
Yeah, go ahead.
The area of discussion here would be, let's say, call it substandard.
the parking.
Yeah.
Parking lot, yes.
What is the intention to use that for vehicle parking or for
Yes, that's
customer
correct.
parking?
This would be, these 2 parking lots would be for vehicle parking and customers and employees.
And no trailer.
Yeah, all the deliveries, that's what this area is now for here.
There's going to be signage directing people into that. We don't really want anybody towing a trailer into the island area, so it'll be, once customers come the first time, they'll understand exactly where the drop-off area is, but the signs will point them to that front right parking lot.
Thank you. I have a follow-up.
Yep.
When in the previous operations, was there ever any complaints about parking?
No.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from public or staff or commission members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion to close the public hearing by Roz and a second by June. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to item C. Do we have an application number for this one, Ryan?
No, because we don't have a permitting system yet. The permitting system applies the numbers.
Got it, okay. Item C, American Industries requesting special permit for earth excavation at 0 Norwich Road and Rood Road, Assessors Map 5, Block 3, Lot 1, RA 60, zoning continued from last month.
For the record, my name is Kyle Hobbert from CLA Engineers, here on behalf of the applicant, American Industries. I can kind of go over some bullet points and refresh your memories from the last meeting, what the project is. The property is 103 acres located at the intersection of Route Road and Route 12. On the map before you, Route Road is running on the left side of the sheet and Route 12 along the top side there. Property is in the RA60 zone. It had previously been used as farmland, and what's being proposed is an earth material excavation, primarily sand gravel excavation. Again, no processing will be done on site. The gravel operation will be self-contained within that purple shaded area, essentially. It's broken into 9 phases, all less than 5 acres in compliance with the DEP guidelines. As I noted, it's essentially a self-contained operation. All of the excavation, all the stormwater from the excavation will be contained on site. It will be held in settling basins, which are the green basins along the southern end of the excavation, and one towards the east end of the excavation. Of the 103 acres that the property contains, I just wanted to note 67 of those acres will remain undisturbed. So the excavation only takes up about 35% of the overall property. Again, we specifically designed the project to be a self-contained gravel excavation and retain stormwater on site. It was designed to preserve the habitat and natural areas primarily that surround 80 Brook runs along the southern boundary here between the railroad tracks and this property. So the excavation design and layout was designed to protect that area. The project was approved by the Inland Wetlands Commission. And as designed, we believe the project does meet the requirements of the zoning regulations. If there's any further questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience with a comment or question on this application, you can step up to the microphone, state your name, your comment, or your question.
My name's Nick Anderson. I live in Plainfield. I'm a member of the Connected Farm Bureau, member of the Plainfield Conservation Commission, but I'm speaking as a private citizen here in this hearing. I feel that the farmland that's going to be excavated is important Connecticut farmland. It's prime farmland, as you know from the maps that were distributed at the last meeting. And basically, when land is excavated for gravel, it's never goes back to its original state as agricultural land. It can't be replaced in that way, so it's lost pretty much as productive farmland. I'm pretty sure of that. And so I think that it's too important to the town to lose this prime farmland for the short-term gain of gravel, and it will not be usable after that. A lot of the farmland along Route 12 has been lost in the past over the years. Where the tire plant is now, that was Norman Farm used to plant that, so that's going across the street where K&H has their complex now. That was pretty much the same land as where Roots Field is, and that's been lost. So there's been development, and that's the way things go. But something has to be kept that's important to the town for farmland, and that's why I'm speaking here. Because I feel that this farmland is too important to lose. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, David Griffiths from Illinois. And I'm a farmer, and I'm telling you, you don't make any more farmlands. Once you destroy it, you don't get it back. No matter what you talk about residents to restore it, put loom back on top, it never grows again like it did. When you got land that'll grow 20 tons of the acre corn, it's fantastic. All I'm telling you is when I went to University of Connecticut, they told me, you wait, 80 years from now we'll be bulldozing down buildings because we need that land to grow our food. And if you look what's happening in California with the fires and the shortage of water, and 80% of our vegetables are coming from there, we got a problem. And we need to preserve as much high-quality farmland as we can to grow our own crops to feed people in this area. Thank you.
Art Gagné, Central Village. I'd also like to speak to the prime farmland. Since the last meeting, I researched this a little bit, and I asked a farmer, what makes prime farmland? And he told me that hilly places like on Exley Road are rocky. Places that are on the riverbed or whatever are silty. This particular spot on Route 12 is prime farmland. And I agree, when you take that away, that prime farmland's gone. You're going to grow grass, maybe. So I think it is important. It's in the POCD to preserve our prime farmland. And maybe gravel operations could be done where there isn't prime farmland, where it's just adequate farmland. And I had two other questions. The sequence of phases, if they're going to remediate as they go, the first phase is their exit. So every phase after that, they're going to be going through that phase, so I don't know how they're going to remediate phase 1 when they go to phase 2 and come back through it. And the other question I have is, when this is all done, 15 feet lower, is there going to be a problem with drainage if perhaps somebody wants to put a warehouse there? Are we going to have a problem draining that storm water back out? They're going to put retention basins and they'll go out slowly, but you know, are we going to have to worry about that? Thank you.
Thank you. For the applicant, could you please on the map indicate the phasing and what the process will be as one phase is closed and the other is open, just to clarify for the public how that will work?
The phasing will work. The main entrance will be right here on Root Road, phase 1. We're then proposing to work from west to east, phase 3 over here, the east end of it, and then progress from, we'll estimate 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 9 at the very end. The restoration will take place, all of the side slopes within here will all be 3-to-1 maximum. So those will all be restored with topsoil seed, allowed either erosion control matting to be placed over it, or a hydro seed with a binder mixed in to stabilize all of those slopes. What we've allowed for is through each phase is an access road. Because you're right, as you work phase 2, you're going to be trucking back out through phase 1. So there's an access road laid out through each of the phases to allow traffic, truck traffic to move in and out of the property. That will be a gravel surface. The surrounding areas will be topsoil and seeded.
What's the width of the access road?
We've allowed at least 24 feet for the truck traffic in and out.
And what will be the material of the road?
It will be gravel.
Will there be any kind of tracking pad when you go onto the roadway?
Yes, we've allowed for a paved apron right at the entrance, and within the site there will be an anti-tracking pad before you exit the site and hit that apron.
And one of the concerns was the depth of digging and what the dimensions would be after completed in reclamation. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the depth will be in general 15 to 16 feet. It'll be a very gentle, roughly a 1% slope from Route 12 towards the settling basins. So the end product will essentially be a large, relatively flat grass area within the excavation.
So each phase will be kept consistently to restore a flat surface?
Yes, yeah, we've made provisions on the plan and through town staff that each phase is restored with the exception of the gravel road through there prior to moving to the next.
Do you have an estimated time frame of what each phase would be?
The entire project is about a 3-year window, depending on how the market conditions go. Each phase is more or less the same volume of material within a reasonable amount, so
No problem.
sorry.
That's okay, 36 months. 36 months,
yes.
so you're looking at about 4 months per
More or less
phase.
4 to 5 months per phase, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Ryan, just a clarification, ordinarily, special permits are 5 years, correct?
Yes.
But the commission does have the ability to exercise a shorter permit window.
Yes, and for clarity, special permits actually go into land and don't expire. The site plan is what actually expires in 5 years.
So like the phasing, so if the commission wanted to have a shorter window of time in order to evaluate the phasing and the reclamation and the restoration, then the commission could exercise that discretion and judgment.
Yes, you could.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Mr. Sweet?
Mr. Sweet, shut up. I know, Carl, you always tell me to behave myself. Madam Chair, members of the board, in November of 1990, they passed zoning regulations to regulate earth removal. In the beginning of your gravel regulations, it makes reference to farmers. And it talks about farmers, and it talks about Plainfield in particular, like Killingly and other towns around us, that have an incredible amount of gravel and sand that's available, that could be used for our town, towns next door, or in the region, if I remember the language right. I remember this whole thing, and John, you might have been the only member here, I think, when the gravel regulation passed. Every farmer in the town of Plainfield was in my office, because the town was trying to pull a Hail Mary, and they were going to regulate the farmers that were selling gravel. And at that time, even though there were farmers still operating, they were supplementing their income by selling gravel. And now all of a sudden, the town had proposed pages of regulation. And like I said, every farmer and every small businessman that owned a gravel bank came piling in. And make a long story short, I was new in office, but they go to the top when there's problems, right? You all will recognize that, no matter who the first selectman is. Bottom line is, I called planning upstairs, Ribu Singh, Laurie James, Marlene. I said, what's going on? And they said they were going to put gravel regulations in the town. And I looked at them, I said, well, I know you have authority, not you all, but the Planning and Zoning Board has authority to regulate and propose regulations and have public hearings on them. Where did you ever allow the farmer to come in and sit down, or the small business guy that was supplementing his income with this gravel? Never took that into account. They just were going to pass these regulations. Well, let me tell you something. That was the longest year that the town ever had to pass regulations. I'm going to tell you why. Because we tried to pull a Hail Mary. When this was all said and done, they had the farmers coming in, sitting with the town, and lawyers, to come up, because I believe in regulations. You could not allow this to continue the way it was continuing. It was out of control. So the fact of the matter is, we brought people in. And at the end of the day, we came up with something that was acceptable. One of the things that was acceptable was the idea of phases, okay? Because the next thing was going to be taxes. If you approve 100 acres of land as industrial and a special permit for gravel operation, you're not going to tax for 100 acres. Well, now the farmers are back to see me again, and the small business people. We're not paying those kind of taxes. So the assessor's office and the lawyers all got together, and that's how the regulations got broken out into cells. I think it was 5 acres at a clip, reclaim behind you, and move on to another 5 acres. All those farmers that had gravel banks, all those small businesses that had gravel banks, every one of them were permitted. They were grandfathered in. Now, this is the truth. All of them. I sat there tonight, I'm thinking about Mr. Hopkins. Had corn, mined it, put corn back, okay? Mr. Gluck, Mr. Tillenhouse, Mr. Kranz, okay? So the fact of the matter was, we ended up grandfathering anybody that showed the town that they had a gravel bank. That's how it went out. They went out, they looked at these places, and all those folks were grandfathered in. They weren't going to be exempt from regulations, but they were going to be grandfathered in, okay? The Rood Farm, down here in the Jewel City Flats, that we're talking about today, now the Roods never came in here for very much, neither did the farmers, okay? But farming was on its way out. You haven't got a farm today in Plainfield that produces milk. You don't have a farm today that raises eggs, or raises chickens, or any of these type of things. Those gravel operations were supplementing the income for the farmers because they couldn't make it anymore. Now we have no farmers in our borders anymore. But we still have the minerals. I get back to Mr. Rood. He wasn't one to come in and make a lot of noise. He never saw what was going on. He sold gravel back then, 5 or 6 loads a year. Maybe a neighbor down the road needed to put a driveway in. If he would have showed up, which he didn't know about, town didn't go see him because he really was under the radar. So he didn't get the grandfather ID or exemption. So now here we are. Roods no longer got farming over there because they can't live, can't pay taxes. That's what this is. I want to be very sincere with you tonight. I know these folks. This is about selling some gravel in order to pay their taxes and survive. That's what this is all about. And because they missed the train with all the rest of them going out of town with exemption, they have to come to you 32 years later, I guess, and ask if they can sell gravel. And they got to play by rules. And they got a customer that's going to buy the gravel if it's approved. So I think you need to know that, because Whitey Hokanen, William Bedard, Popman Brothers, they all had gravel banks that were maybe 3 acres big. I don't know. No big boys were in town back then. And by the way, Tilcon came in to get grandfathered also. The Glucks, the John, actually, Whitey Hokanen, Jolly, Dick Jakes, anybody that had gravel came in. They're going to play by rules, but they're going to get grandfathered in. So I'm just saying, so Rood missed that boat. He missed that boat. 33 years later, and there's many more that play by the rules, and that's what Mr. Rood is doing tonight. He's made some mistakes along the way. Oh yes, he has. Farm boys do that. Sometimes we think, I grew up on a farm, and you work hard. And David, I take an exception to my friend David, but Econ Hill was nothing but stone. And through generations of picking rocks and picking rocks and picking rocks, they made farmland. And it still grows rock, but the fact is it's farmland. Great farmland. No gravel under it though. It's hard pan. You have to get down 1.5 feet or so. So what I'm saying is, the people I mentioned mined 5 acres at a clip, reclaimed it because that's what the rules said, and planted corn or planted hay. And it's doing fine. So I'm not an expert, but people get up and start talking about prime farmland and like you're going to do away with it. You're not doing away with anything. You're just letting another farmer survive. That's what you're really doing here. And it's under a special permit. The town has all the rules. It's all, you guys govern this whole situation. So, and I'm going to apologize for taking on Conservation Commission people last month. But it irks me, Nick. I've known you a long time.
Mr. Sweet, this is not a debate, so keep your comment directed.
Yeah, okay, I read it to you. But
thank you.
They just cut every maple tree in downtown Plainfield, Musa. Everything we planted 30 years ago has all been cut down, and I'm sure they're going to come around and say that the power company, baloney, they're going to trim those trees out.
Bring it back to this application, Mr.
People
Sweet.
go over there and deal with it?
That is
that's what they're supposed
a
to do.
topic for their meeting, this application.
All right,
Thank you.
I'm gonna wind it up by this. Farmers got a right to live, and people got a right to live, just like your accessory apartments that I favor, right? People got a right to live. then they gotta come to you people for permission to live. And I think they should get a little consideration. Little consideration in this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
My question is, do you approve the restoration?
It's part of the phasing plan.
Well, I would strongly suggest that they do a map and showing the level of the topsoil in the area that they're going to excavate. And so when it is restored, if you approve this plan, that the same level of topsoil is restored as to what there was in the beginning. I'd like to see this land be productive again, if that's what you're going to do. And I know you have gravel, and gravel is money, and I know Killingly doesn't. What we've had to do is the power plant at Lake Road. They had to take all the ledge and pulverize it and grind it up to make gravel, and that costs more than just mining it, I understand. But if you're going to do something with mining, I'd like to see the land restored to what it was before the mining, the excavation took place. And so mapping of where the topsoil is and how much will give you a good indication of what is there and what you expect them to put back when they're done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
John Peterson, I got a question. You said it's a 15-foot cut. Is that from the road level or from the top of the ground? Because the ground's a little higher than the road level.
So just to clarify,
That would be from the ground level. You're right, for most of this, the road does sit slightly lower. There's a berm between the road and where the excavation will start.
Any idea roughly how many feet it is from the road level to the bottom of the excavation?
I would say the road in general is about 2 to 3 feet lower than where that berm is along the road.
and the berm will remain.
The berm will remain, yes.
So the berm is not going to be disturbed.
Correct. Everything along this corridor and along the road remains. So you're looking at about 12-ish foot out.
Does your detail show how many inches or how many feet of topsoil will be returned?
Was that mapped out in a detail sheet?
We do have, test pits and monitoring wells throughout the property. The test pits have indicated, I believe, between 6 and 12 inches of topsoil throughout the property. As part of this, and it's specified on the plans, no topsoil leaves the site. All the topsoil stays on site and is used for restoration of the property.
So the restoration plan is to return the 6 to 12 inches of topsoil back to
We've
its...
specified a 6-inch minimum on the
6 inch.
plans.
Does that seem adequate? Seems a little shallow to me. Or, being on the farm, something like that. Should be closer to a foot of topsoil.
Well, don't forget, for many years, when it was the turf farm, you lose a little bit of soil with the turf farm. I think that's why they actually stopped.
Okay.
Well, they also brought material in when they were doing the turf farm, I thought.
Well, I don't know.
Pretty sure I saw the truck in there at that time.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
A few years ago, when I was trying to start an ag commission in the town of Plainfield, Paul Sweet was the first selectman at the time, and I was an advocate for farmland preservation, which I'm trying to do that tonight. But he told me that the town of Plainfield will never actively try to preserve farmland, and that's pretty much a quote.
Stop.
I'm just hoping that the planning and zoning commission...
lunch now.
Mr. Sweet, we're not going to have this quarrel in this room. You can take it outside. Your comment has been recorded for the public record.
I just would, in the face of that, I just hope that the Planning and Zoning Commission in the future adopts a more aggressive stance towards preserving the farmland that's left in the town.
Thank you. Mr. Sweet, if you'd like to rebut or refute or deny the comment, you may, but this will not be an argument or quarrel in this room.
I fully understand, Madam
Thank you.
Chair. I'd just like you to know that under my administration, there an agriculture commission was established, fully. And their comments are erroneous, and they're not even begin to be in my mindset. Thank you very much.
All right, recorded for the public. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this application? Any comments or questions from staff?
No, all my comments have been addressed. Jeff, did you have any comments?
No, Madam Chair, the engineering comments have been addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm an novice on this. Explain to me the topsoil.
Yes.
Now, you're saying you're going to spread 6 to 12. Where it came from? If you got 12 here, you put 12 back there. If you got 12 here, you put 6 here, you put 6 back there. Is that how it works?
Not exactly, no. The thickness varies throughout the property. So the first step of each phase is to strip the topsoil off the top layer of the property. So if you come in here, they'll bulldoze the topsoil, stockpile it in this area here, protect it with silt fence so it doesn't erode and wash away. As they work this phase, the topsoil will come back in and be spread over the gravel excavation. That's where we specified a minimum 6 inches of topsoil be spread over that disturbed area. So it's not an exact, the topsoil waivers, the depth of the waivers across the entire property. We've specified a minimum 6 inches go back in as the restoration.
Follow up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
What kind of crop grows in 6 inches?
That I don't know. What we're proposing as the finished product of this is grass. So what will be put back in, what will be growing at the end of this will be grass. And that's more than sufficient for standard grass and
So you're not saying it's going back to prime farmland?
It may go back to, the owner is free to do what he wants with his property. It was farmland before, he can farm it again. As I said, all of the topsoil that is on the property stays on the property. If it's left over at the end, it will be stockpiled and the farm can be spread and used as a farm again.
And just a reminder for members, Mr. Rude was here at the public hearing last month and did indicate that was his intention.
And I would like to note also, of the property, there are, this entire piece of the property over here, it's over 23 acres, will remain undisturbed, is farmland now and will remain undisturbed. It can certainly be as farmland again, once the gravel excavation is complete.
You own all that property though? You own the 103?
Mr. Root owns the entire property, yes, the entire 103 acres. You can see this yellow line here surrounding the property, that's the property boundary.
So for today, it won't be, but it can be in the future? That can, the 67 acres in the future? Or is there no gravel?
So it's not on
I'm
this
sorry.
permit, it's not on this application.
Correct, this is not part of the permit. What we found through the soil testing and the monitoring wells and the attachments that we did, there's essentially a seam that runs right in this area here, where the material turns siltier in this area, so the gravel is not as valuable.
It's not there, okay.
As the rest of it.
That's,
Because the sand and gravel that is located in this area is a valuable resource, as noted, throughout the region for all construction projects, restoration projects, gravel roads, utilities, you name it. It comes into play in all of those kind of projects.
thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
Yeah, if the Roots wanted to farm now while you're excavating on the other side, could they come in and farm that land that's there?
With cooperation with American, who will be operating the gravel operation, there may be that opportunity while the gravel is going on. There may be some conflict with access between farm equipment and the gravel excavators and stuff, but they could work an agreement amongst themselves to do that, yes.
Okay, and then I have a question, maybe somebody can answer here. Is there any agricultural land left in that area? Because the plan of conservation and development has that area between Bishop's Crossing and Rood Road. You've got agriculture, you've got industrial, it's a big mix. And it was never really addressed that farmland was selected out to be saved. So is there any other farmland on that road, Route 12?
Ryan, on the mapping area, I don't believe there's any active farmland along that strip.
I'm not sure. I think there probably is somewhere,
I see you. Thank you.
but I'd have to check aerials to see.
Okay. So this is still a public hearing, so if there's someone in the audience with a comment or question, you step up to the microphone, state your name, and keep your comment related to the application.
Absolutely. My name is Nick Anderson. Across from the Root property, there's that's currently owned by a It's next to American Express. There's a farm field that's still being farmed, and I was cutting hay on that field up until 2 years ago. I cut the hay on that field for 6 years, and now Brad Kettle's cutting that field. It's directly across Topa Road from American Express. And next to that field, there's a field in back of the house on Route 12 that's still an active farm field. So there's two active farm fields still on that side of the road, but that's all. The rest of the land that used to be Kenny Griswold's farm was, made into a gravel operation by K&H. So that's not being farmed anymore. But there are still those two small lots there.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
And my other question was about taxes. Is it RA 60 there? And does it change, the zoning change for the taxes? Now it's industrial.
The zoning does not change. However, what is being gravelled will be taxed at a different rate that's assigned to gravel operations.
So it's assessed differently by the assessor's office.
Right.
So any specific questions about tax assessment could be directed to the tax assessor. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Art Gagny, Jackson Road. After hearing other people speak, I want to go back to the prime farmland. And they kind of confirm other people that Yukon Hill is not prime farmland, it's all rocky. Like somebody told me that hilly areas tend to be more rocky. And the rest of this property that's closer to the wetlands is got silt. Again, not as good. So, it indicates this is prime farmland, and I think the reason being is the drainage that it has because of all that gravel. Now, when you strip 15 feet off of it, is it still going to be prime land? I guess that's up to the commission to question that and, go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I had another question.
Yeah.
After it's all stripped and everything, is there anything to prevent the roads from selling for development of this kind?
So as with all property owners, they have the right to use their property within the regulations, and they also have the right to sell the property should they deem it necessary to do so. So no, the town does not have the ability to restrict any property owner from selling their property should they choose to do so. Correct.
Madam Chair, can I?
Yes, Mr. Sweet.
I'd be nice about it. I want to answer June's question about any other farmland. O&G owns approximately 300 acres of farmland. You're talking about driving along Route 12, I'm assuming.
Right.
Just over a bit, behind. There's 300 acres that O&G owns. There's 100 acres that Yawoski owns. I'm sorry, the 60 acres that Yawoski owns. There's another 200 acres that Yawoski and American owns. There's also Schultz Farm? The Schultz Farm, that they own a considerable amount of farmland. And going back to that one question, somebody asked about farming and mining at the same time. They intend to farm and mine at the same time. You know what I mean? They're going to mine where they mine, but they're planting corn and hay or whatever they have, they're not going to stop doing that. So they're not stripping. That word sounds like we're going to just rape the place. That ain't what they're doing. We're talking about 33, 34 acres out of the 100 and some acres that they're going to actually disturb. So I just want to make sure.
3 acres at a phase.
Do you have
5 acres at a phase, 5 acres at a
do
phase.
you have an example of anywhere where these gravel operations have ceased and the land has been
Okay,
restored?
June, I'm going to advise that you bring your question back to the application at hand,
Okay.
because you're starting to head into more of a conversation that a plan of conservation and development would be, rather than what the application before us is, so I'm just going to pull you back on that one. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question on the hours. I see here from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I think that those are a little out of whack. That's a lot, I think, for a neighborhood. That's why I'm.
So we can adjust hours of operation, and we can have that deliberation when we discuss the application. But if you wanted to address anything about hours in the public hearing, you're welcome to do so.
Those are the hours that are allowed under the zoning
no weekend hours, no Saturday, no Sunday.
Correct, I don't believe the zoning regulations allow weekend work.
They do.
Okay, then they have not requested weekend.
Okay. So they're requesting maximum hours Monday to Friday? Okay. And you'll note that staff did put a comment about what could be allowed before and after business hours, and that would be another item for our discussion at deliberation. As the public hearing is for information, deliberation happens when we discuss after the close of the public hearing. Any other comments or questions? Yes?
Can I just make a statement? Last month's meeting, the first selectman had a concern about winter hours because this buses and all. So I just wanted to remind the commission
Thank
about
you.
that.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this application?
I got one comment, Sean Peterson. I do know of some land in town that has been remediated and is growing hay very well. The farmer just has to appropriately treat the ground.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Roz, second by John. All in favor of closing public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to the regular meeting, I'll call the meeting to order. Item 2, additions or corrections to the agenda. We do have an item to add under new business. Item B, discussion of potential moratorium pertaining to cannabis covering all uses as stated in Public Act number 21-1, Senate Bill number 1201, an act concerning responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis. Do I have a motion to add that to the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by June, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Added to new business, item B, citizen participation. This would be opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the commission on something that was not a public hearing.
Art Gagnon, Central Village. I just had a question about what would one do with the railroad out parking lot? I don't know if you've been through there. On the back side, the curbing keeps getting torn up by the snowplow. How do we go about, do we have to get a site plan change or whatever to reduce that? Because I asked Kevin about it, he said you have to go through the process.
Do they have a site plan on file for the railroad and the adjoining areas?
So I'm not sure.
On the back side of it,
Backside of what?
of the railroad out parking lot.
The town's parking lot?
Yeah, when they come around with the plow, they take out the curbing every time because it's too narrow on the back side.
Is that
It
police
says we have
commission?
to go through
Does
the,
that fall under police commission, roads and signage and,
No, that would be under selectmen.
okay.
If they want to make a slight change, there's really no issue.
okay, so I can take out with him.
Hold on, this is not a discussion, it's citizen participation. You can have a comment addressed to the commission, but any conversations, you gotta take it outside.
You like me?
I do.
It's a good thing.
I get it too, don't worry.
Any other citizen participation? All right, so moving on to our unfinished old business. Item A, Z 2022-2283, continuation of United Ag and Turf Northeast requesting permission to construct a 7,780 square foot addition, pavement modifications, and drainage improvements for property located at 20 Excalibur Boulevard, Assessors Map 17, Block 11, Lot I-32, HC Zoning District. Any items for discussion from the commission?
I'll just say that I'm glad to see that the property is being revitalized for a really good use, and I think it'll be a good addition to the town. I think that the modifications that the applicant has proposed are good.
And I believe there were some items for conditions of approval. Just can't find the sheet here. Too many papers. So if member was planning on making a motion, then they would also have to include any items for, that's all right, I'll read this for you. All right. This is the one, right? Okay. So if the commission motions to approve the plans, staff had the following suggested conditions of approval. Mylars are to be filed with the town clerk prior to receiving a zoning permit. The special permit is to be filed with the town clerk prior to receiving a zoning permit. Engineering fees to be determined are to be paid prior to filing Mylars or within 30 days of being billed, whichever comes first. All site work, with the exception of the addition, is to be completed prior to being issued a certificate of zoning compliance or use and compliance certificate. The ZEO, zoning enforcement officer, may waive this requirement with receipt of a surety bond if the CO or CZC is requested outside of the growing season.
We make a motion to approve with, I'm sorry,
I think that Mary Ann had asked us in accordance to the plans presented at the zoning board meeting this evening.
okay.
Okay, so add that bullet point.
And then Ryan had also wanted the maintenance phase labeled on the plans.
Maintenance phase labeled on plans. Okay, so adding those 2 points.
I would make a motion to approve with the conditions as read by Carla, amended by Roz, and with the comment by the town engineer and the
Okay, I have a motion by John with those conditions. I have a second by Roz. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with those conditions. Moving on to item B, Z 2022-2275, continuation of Planning and Zoning Commission applying for the amendment to the zoning regulations for accessory dwelling units, ADU. So we went through significant changes on these plans, removed the detached language, modified so that all require special permit. Did board members have any other items for discussion, or staff members have any points of clarification? Okay, so if there are no additional items,
We're at, how much, 900 square feet right now?
so it's up to 1,200 square feet, but the commission can certainly modify that.
I would prefer 900 square feet. I don't know how you,
Because the 1,200 was for all zones, including commercial zones, is that right?
Under special permit.
Under special permit.
Sure, so if, let's say you looked at a lot, and the lot's kind of on the small side, and you looked at the addition and thought that it was getting a little large for the property, you could require them to scale it back. Also, there's the 75% percentage requirement, so you can actually 75% of the living area of the house.
Ryan, would you also be constrained by setbacks, right?
You would, yes.
So what the regulations allow is up to, so must not exceed 1,200 square feet. So the commission does have the discretion under special permit to reduce the size of that accessory dwelling unit. And that would happen at the special permit application process.
So it doesn't go 900 to 12, you could go 900 to 1,000 to 1,100, right?
Must not exceed 1,200 square feet. Yep, so they could apply for 600 square feet. So anything less than 1,200 square feet they can apply for, and through the process we can modify. Because it's all special permit, even the commercial zones.
Yes.
Just clarifying. Any other comments from board members on this application? And just to note, because it is a modification to our regulations, it does require an effective date. So for members making a motion, if you could also include the effective date so we can do it in one motion. And would you say first day of the month following meeting? Okay.
July 1st.
All right. So if there are no other items from board members, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion
For
from
July 1st.
June to approve as presented with a July 1st effective date. Okay. All right, so I have a motion by June and a second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with an effective date of July 1st. Moving on to item C, American Industries requesting a special permit for earth excavation at 0 Norwich Road and Rood Road, Assessors Map 5, Block 3, Lot 1, RA60 zoning district. Items for discussion, the hours of operation was an item that members wanted to discuss. as well as the minimum amount of the topsoil reclamation.
Yes, I'd like to discuss the hours. I
Okay,
think 7 is quite a long period of time in a neighborhood down there like that.
okay. So what is your suggestion?
I would like to see maybe 8 to 6 or 8 to 5, 8 to 5.
Okay, do any other board members have an opinion on the hours of operation?
I think that's good too.
So Monday
8
to
to
Friday, 8 to 5. Okay? Staff had brought up if there were any activities allowed prior to the start of their business hours. I would not be in favor of an activity before or after business hours for the simple reason that it could cause confusion as to whether and what their business hours really are. So I would say the applicant should keep activities that are not farming activities. So the mining excavation activities should stay within the Monday to Friday 8 to 5, but obviously any agricultural is not included in this. This is purely for excavation activity.
If we could get some clarification. So as part of the excavation process, sometimes they go in to do maintenance on the equipment. So it should be clarified if there's no running of equipment outside of those hours, or if they're allowed to go in there and do some routine maintenance, but not start the equipment. So, what are your intentions here?
I agree with that. It's only, during those, like, off hours.
So, can you repeat that?
During the off hours, like, either before work hours or even after, will be maintenance coming.
So no earth excavation activities, period.
Correct.
Roz or June, do you have any additional input on that?
I agree.
I just have a question. Would that be like a breakdown? Or is that like a complete maintenance process?
Well, it could be breakdown, or it could be just scheduled maintenance, and normal machines have to have maintenance.
So basically, it's just outside of the normal operation hours, there's just no operation of the equipment, and they can do maintenance on the equipment, as long as they're not running, as long as they're not running the equipment.
Correct.
And pulling gravel.
I have a question about truck traffic. Will they be going in and out of there as fast as they were when they first started this?
They are
Or do they
required
have
to
a-
observe all speed limits on
And
town
they have a
roads.
requirement of how many go in and out of the?
So they had loads per day indicated, which would be reduced given we reduced their work hours.
Okay.
So they did give an estimated truck per day with a 7 to 7 hours, so that would be reduced in conjunction with the
Okay.
hours. Yep. And if there were any speed complaints, that would have to be directed to the police department. Any other items that needed to be discussed, staff, that we did not address?
Just what I have in